Waffle69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a full deep dive analysis review on the Tier 6 Premium German battleship, the Prinz Eitel Friedrich. This is the ship that Wargaming has stuffed into the second progression line of the event pass here in update 14.9, and my job here is to showcase this ship, talk a little bit about her, and tell you, is she good enough in order to justify the 2,500 doubloon cost that is going to take you in order to unlock that second progression line. Obviously there's more to the progression line other than just the ship, but I understand the ship is a big component in why people justify spending the 2,500 doubloons. And for some people 2,500 doubloons is a lot. For others it's kind of like chump change, but I understand that it's still a big decision. So my job here is going to be showcasing the ship, talking a little bit about her, and telling you whether or not if she's worth the pickup, whether or not if it's justification in order to spend the 2,500 doubloons for this update 14.9 event pass. And I'll right out the gates, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about her, what's she good at, kind of what's the Wargaming pitched ship here. Okay, so a little bit of history about this ship. This ship came out, I think, about 6-7 years ago. I think you could have unlocked her for some like holiday op campaign or something like that way back in the day, for some kind of mission chain back in the day, and that's actually how I unlocked mine. And she was sold as this more accurate, more consistent German battleship with its main battery guns. And compared to the Bayern, especially back in the day, and even compared to it now, I would give it credit. I would give it a good nod and acknowledge that that is true of what this thing is. The problem when it comes to the Prinz Eitel Friedrich, there's multiple things, okay? One, when it comes to the armor, this is a German battleship that you can indeed citadel. It does not have the turtleback like the Bayern. Two, it does not have 380mm guns, so it lacks overmatch compared to the Bayern. Where the Bayern has those 380s, they can just point and click on ships, especially at this tier, and it can usually nuke them. Prinz Eitel Friedrich doesn't have that. So the Prinz Eitel Friedrich is going to be relying more on pinpointing its shots and hitting the target in specific areas rather than the Bayern is. But another good comparison to the ship would be the Mackensen. Obviously, this is a Mackensen class battle cruiser battleship. So comparing it to her is going to be obviously ideal. I want to be comparing it heavily to the Mackensen and the Bayern, so you kind of understand what you'll be getting and what you'll be seeing on the battlefield. Obviously, this ship is a little bit more of a rare sighting. You don't really see that. And in World of Warships, that usually means two things. One, the ship is very exclusive. It's rare. Not a lot of people have it. Or two, it's usually not that good. Not a lot of people want to play it because it's not really bringing anything to the table. And they're not necessarily wrong with that. Okay. This might be the first ship. I don't even know. There might be other. I think there's other event pass ships that I wasn't a big fan of. This might be one of the first or a couple event ships that I'm not really a big fan of. In my opinion, I'd rather play other battleships at this tier. But I can understand the draw, and I'm going to try to address those draws and concerns when it comes to the Prinz Eitel Friedrich. So without further ado, let's just go in and start talking about the ship and start going over some stats so that I can then go to some gameplay and show you guys how she kind of plays in game. Okay. So first things first is the armor layout. You have a 26mm nose, 26mm ass, and that 50mm deck in the midsection there. So the armor up the get-go isn't looking terrible. I mean, it's definitely not great, but the 50mm deck is nice, right? Also, when it comes to the armor belt, you have 270 millimeters of effective armor belt. And then once you look at the citadel, there is no turtleback, and you have a waterline citadel, which can I would say pretty easily be hit at any medium or long range, any plunging fire, or if the ship's making a turn when it's keel up or whatever, when it's listing to port or whatever, you're going to be able to drill right into the citadel and punish the Prinz Eitel Friedrich pretty damn hard. One thing to keep a note about this ship, you do have these casemate secondaries. These do act as the infamous shell catchers. Shells will go and strike these and then bounce around, potentially hit and penetrate softer areas of the ship. It's not uncommon. I've seen it happen a lot. A good example of that is like the Ismail, the Russian or the Soviet tier 6 battleship. Sometimes, you just eat random citadels because the citadel is so large and above water, it'll strike the casemate secondaries, kind of bounce around and go right into the citadel. It's weird how the physics in this game work sometimes, but I just want to keep that in mind and warn you that these things can indeed happen. Going to survivability, you are actually clocking in at, 52,300 health, not the 54,000 you see on screen. That's just because of the signal flags. I should have gone and taken those off, but we've already started the video, and I really don't want to do that. The torpedo protection damage reduction is going to be 27%. That is higher than the Mackinson and definitely higher than that of the Bayern, where the Mackinson has a little bit of a mitigation with its hydroacoustic search. The Bayern does not have that, and nor does the Prinz Eitel Friedrich, but the Prinz Eitel Friedrich has that torpedo protection as a kind of a safety net. The Bayern at 19%. You're going to have to be a little bit more conscientious and know when to push. Again, emphasizing why I wouldn't build that thing for secondaries. I made a whole down the line series going down to the poison line. Obviously, the Bayern's included in that. So I'll go ahead and link that in the description. You guys can go check those out as well if you are curious on how to play or how I play the poison line and how I recommend playing and building those particular ships. Going into the artillery, so the main battery consists of 4x2 350 millimeter guns. The reload time is 28 seconds. 180-degree turn time of 45 seconds, and again, your maximum range is clocking in at 17.8. For the reload time of the main battery, that's actually not too shabby, right? With 28 seconds, yes, the Mackinson has 27, so it beats it by a whole whopping second, and the Bayern's clocking in at 30 seconds. So you are a quicker reloading battleship, I would say, though the Mackinson does beat you by a whole second. Your range, though, is beating the Mackinson. The Mackinson only having 16.6 kilometers, the Bayern having 17.7, your range clocking in at 17.8. The real big downside here is that 45 second, 180 degree turn time. That does rather suck. The Bayern's is 51 seconds, and then the Mackinson is 30 seconds as well. So you're going to have to pre-plan your turrets, alignment, where they're going to be at and where they're going to be aiming, to make sure that you can have them ready to fire when you're ready to fire. Basically, you're not having to maneuver to get them to go where you want to go, right? Okay, worth talking about is the dispersion. And this is a big thing when it comes to the Eitel Friedrich, so this better be good, right? Well, when you look at it, and we're going to say the main battery firing range is around 17 kilometers as the maximum range. Your horizontal dispersion and your vertical dispersion are identical to the Bayern. And if you guys have played the Bayern, you understand that the Bayern is a big crapshoot. It is a toss-up whether or not these shells are going to go where you want them to go. I've seen some shotgun dispersion on the Bayern. It is horrendous. So it's already not looking good. For a ship that's sold to us as a more consistent, more accurate German BB, we're not off to a great start here. Given the fact that the Mackinson has 191 meters horizontal and 115 meters vertical, that's already a little bit better than that of either of these two ships, including the Friedrich. The big difference, though, is the sigma value. The sigma value on the Friedrich is clocking in at 2.0 sigma, which means that the ship is pretty consistent in its shells landing in our ellipse, our firing ellipse, landing where they want to be going, or where they should be going. Now, the Bayern's is 1.8, and the Mackinson's is 1.6. So they're kind of a crapshoot in the regard that they're not very consistent in where they're going to be landing in the ellipse. Their ellipse is more spread out and more shotgunny like, whereas the Friedrich is more in line and tighter with its dispersion and its consistency where its shells are going to be landing. So again, these numbers, you're going to have to be comparing and contrasting and understanding that they are consistent and accurate in their own right, but they're also inaccurate and not consistent in their own right as well. So there's a bunch of numbers here floating around. I would say more importantly, the sigma value is going to be a little bit more important because at least I know that my shells are going to be consistent with where they're landing rather than just the hard numbers of the vertical and horizontal dispersion values. Just my opinion, okay? Going into the high explosive shells. They're clocking in at 4,000 damage with a 27% fire chance, and they can go ahead and pen 88 millimeters of armor. And then your armor piercing is clocking in at 10,500. Both are coming out of the barrel at 815 meters a second, which again should be pretty comfortable for the vast majority of players to lead the target appropriately, right? The high explosive I want to talk about just a little bit here and pinpoint. I'll flat out tell you that the Bayern probably has better HE, more damage, higher penetration, higher fire chance, more fires per minute, which again kind of sucks because the Bayern really shouldn't be shooting HE as it has 380 millimeter guns, and 380 millimeter guns can overmatch 26 millimeters of armor. So more often than not, it's really not utilizing its HE. Where a ship like the Friedrich and the Mackensen every now and then will have to shoot HE depending on how heavily armored the target is and the angle that's presenting to the 350 millimeter guns, because the 350 millimeter guns can only overmatch 24 millimeters of effective armor. So against cruisers, it's really not a concern. It mainly comes down to battleships, whether or not they're presenting the right angle in order for your armor piercing to do decent amount of damage. But yeah, basically they have 88 millimeters of penetration with a 27% fire chance, which is leading to around a 4.6 fires per minute. For the Friedrich, the Mackensen actually does come in at 4.8, and that just comes down to a little bit of a faster reload time for the shells. Again, I would say the HE isn't really good. You shouldn't really be loading HE for the vast majority of the time. You want to be shooting AP. You are a battleship. You want to make sure you punish opponents effectively to make sure that we can take those large amounts of HP away from them to allow our faster DPM ships to go ahead and finish them off. Of course, if they're going to sail flat broadside to you, by all means, nuke them off the face of the earth. But again, that comes down to our consistency, our sigma value, our dispersion values, right? All right, going into the armor piercing shells. Again, there's really not much to write home about here. I mean, as you know, the big difference between the 350s and 380s is overmatch, but the next one is going to be obviously damage. The Bayern's going to be doing way more damage effectively than the Friedrich and the Mackensen. But a difference with the two Mackensen and Friedrich compared to the Bayern is going to be the threshold. The threshold is the minimum amount of armor thickness to trigger the fuse, which that's going to be 59 rather than 63 on the Bayern. I guess that means that that's going to be more effective against lightly armored targets such as cruisers, as you're going to be able to schwack cruisers and be able to get those juicy Citadel ribbons more effectively and efficiently rather than the Bayern, because the Bayern has larger caliber shells. Next, we should talk about the secondaries. Now, the one thing I want to write home about the secondaries is, yes, I'll flat out say the Friedrich has way better secondary DPM and actual hitting DPM for secondaries than that of the Mackensen. And the Mackensen is going down the Schlieffen line, okay? So I will acknowledge that the Friedrich can get away with a secondary build if you so choose. But my understanding is this. I still wouldn't build a secondary build for this thing if I'm looking at her. And the main reason is because my armor, I don't really trust my armor. My damage mitigation, because I don't have that fast acting damage control part that the Mackensen has, and I still have a waterline Citadel. So I can absolutely get punished if I push too far ahead, and I get put in crossfire, stuff like that. Also, I don't have a hydro, so I really can't, I'm really relying on my own intuition, understanding where torpedoes are going to be coming from and where enemy destroyers are located. So a bunch of all these things together are reasons why I wouldn't build for secondaries. But if you so choose, your secondary DPM is quite good. Your secondary DPM is actually 267,000, and your actual hitting DPM is 39,200. Blowing the Mackensen and the Bayern out of the water, the Mackensen for secondary DPM has 154,000 and the Bayern having 191. So yeah, the secondaries, I guess, are good. But again, you have to factor in the range. The range is 5.6 across the board for all of them. So if you take all the captain skills, all the upgrades, what are you getting? High 7s, low 8s in regards of your range. Do you want to be pushing your ship into those situations all the time? Do you think you will be able to all the time? My opinion, no. I don't think the range is that good. I think I'm really going to have to be overextending a lot in order to get use out of my secondaries, which I guess are good. The main time you're going to be making use of these secondaries are against bad players, or if you're later on in the game when the amount of enemy ships on the enemy team has dwindled to lower and lower and lower, when you're only dealing with, let's say, potentially 6 ships rather than 12. A big reason why the secondary DPM is so good on the Friedrich is because you're actually bringing to the table 150 millimeter guns and 105s, which is in line with more standard German battleships, rather than the Mackensons that actually has 105s and 88 millimeters. And that's why your fires per minute is reaching 23.3 rather than 15.1. You do have a faster reload on these guns, which is 3.4 to 7.5 rather than 3.6 to 8.6. So all these things in total, you're going to be firing way more shells. You're going to be getting way more fires per minute if you get in your ranges. That's the thing. You need to get in range with your secondaries, or your secondaries are doing nothing. So with the first beginning, the beginning of the battle, you have 7 points invested in secondaries that you will not be able to make use of. And you're in the third slot, you're taking your secondary battery modification, which is directly hindering your main battery's effectiveness. So it's like all these things you have to factor in. Is it worth it? My opinion, no. But the fun factor, as I can tell you, if you're just looking to have a good time, the secondaries on this thing are pretty fun. There is some fun to be had in them, and against bad players, and if you push in this thing, yeah, you can make use of them and do pretty good damage with them. But again, I personally, if you're looking at it from like a competitive stance, personally wouldn't recommend it. Okay. Um, Going to the airstrike, we have airstrike AA defense, not really worth it. The AA is better than that of the Byron and Mackinson, but again, if I'm a tier 6 carrier, God forbid a tier 8 carrier, and I see this thing alone on a flank, I'm striking her because I know that I'm not going to get, the thing's not even going to make a dent in my reserves when it comes to my planes. Going to the maneuverability, which again, I have the Sierra Mike flag on, so I apologize for that. Your maximum speed is 28 knots, your rudder shift time of 14 seconds, and your turning circle radius of 800 meters. Pretty identical to that, the Mackinson. The Mackinson actually is coming in at 780, which is a little bit lower, and the Byron is a little bit lower in the turning circle radius as well at 630. So again, just a bunch of like different little factors to worry about. That's why I take the steering gears and the fourth slot, not damage control, because I want to offset that a little bit. And again, how I'm playing my ship at medium ranges, I'm not really concerned with absorbing so much damage anyway, so I know how to kind of mitigate that, which I do a decently good job at that as well. And last but not least, we go into the concealment value, which is the highest of the 3 battleships I've been comparing it to. This is the detection of 14.6 kilometers. The Mackinson is coming in at 12.8, which is pretty nice, and then the Byron at 13.4. I do recommend taking Concealment Expert just to get that down to like 13.6 or 13.4, whatever it comes down to help mitigate that again, so I can play at those medium ranges and I can still utilize my somewhat decent concealment value to my advantage. But yeah, guys, that is basically the Prinz Eitel Friedrich in a nutshell. The boat, to me, doesn't bring enough in order to justify spending 2,500 doubloons. Again, if it's not a whole lot of doubloons for you, you're sitting on a lot like I have, like, yeah, fuck it. Like, if you want to get that, the event pass brings other rewards and goodies for you too. Like, at that point, that comes down to you to justify whether or not it's worth it. If you're solely looking at it to get a boat, in my opinion, I probably wouldn't pick up the Friedrich just because I don't find her too competitive or too good. I think personally you can get an equally good result in either your Bayern, or better result in your Bayern or your Mackinson. It's not bringing anything to the table that's really going to allow me or make me want to spend money or play the ship over the other two. And then when it comes, if you're going to do it for the secondaries, like, yes, the secondaries are fun, but guess what? If you don't play them, you're really not missing out on much either, because then, like I've already talked about, it comes down to you as the player understanding or determining whether or not it's worth shoving my ship that far ahead in advance and potentially putting it in bad situations just in order to get my secondary DPM working. So these are all things you have to weigh. But right out the gates, just looking at the ship and its statistics and what I can tell you about the ship, this ship to me is just a collector's ship and every now and then a fuck around ship. It's really not a competitive ship. I don't want to say she's a bad ship, but I certainly wouldn't say she's a good ship, is what I'm trying to say. I think she's just an even keel. You're not really missing much if you don't pick her up. But don't take my word for it, guys. Let's go ahead and show you some gameplay on her just so you can see what she can do in action. Okay, guys, and here we are in battle with our Prinz Eitel Friedrich. And like I've promised, I always go ahead and remind you guys of the captain build that I put on the ship. This is a domination battle here, and I can't remember the name of the battle. This is Trident or something. I don't really remember the names of the maps too well, but yeah, this is obviously a little bit of a smaller game, so bear that in mind while I'm talking a little bit about this ship, kind of her strengths, kind of her weaknesses, and trying to highlight some overall aspects of the vessel in itself. Obviously, one thing I tried hammering home about when I was talking about her in the port section was that the viability of the secondary build. Now, obviously, the secondaries have pretty damn good DPM and pretty damn good actual hitting DPM, and worth speccing secondary build for most people. Obviously, for myself, and what I'm looking at for my ship, I kind of realized that I don't really think it's too worth it, just because I really didn't want to push forward all hell of a lot all the time in order to get my 7 point something, 8 point something kilometer secondaries involved in the battle every time. Sometimes that just won't simply happen, and I felt like if I'm doing that all the time, it's really putting my ship in a vulnerable state, as I really have no damage mitigation tactics or things at my disposal, such as the improved damage control party or a hydroacoustic surge. Both are missing on this ship, unlike the Mackinson, who has both. So it's something like that I weighed, and at the end of the day I said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and spec into just basic survivability and basic artillery. Nothing else to it, right? So of course, with this particular ship, I have like a 15-point commander on her. Again, not too much. It's a tier 6 commander. I do highlight a 21-point commander viability on her, and eventually what I'm projected to do and what I would do. But again, as you can see, I chose not to do the secondaries. And of course, there are situations like you're seeing right here before you that the secondaries would be, beneficial. But to me personally, again, it's just you're preying upon stupid people and low tier gameplay, and it's not always the case. You can't just force yourself in situations and think like, hey, I'm going to get the most out of my secondaries every single game I play. It's just simply not the case. So I went ahead and just took a standard battleship build. But I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about the boat and what she's good at and that sort of thing. So obviously she is a lighter armored battleship. As you saw, 270 millimeters of effective armor plating, and her citadel is waterline, so she can be citadel and can be punished if you are not angling properly. Her speed at 28 knots isn't terrible for the tier. It can definitely get you from point A to point B if fast enough. But again, the main bread and butter and what this ship tries to be, as I tried to highlight in the port screen analysis, would be the artillery and the consistency with the guns. And I kind of mentioned it too, that I don't really think it's that all consistent, or as much as Wargaming is at least trying to lead us on to believing it's consistent. I think maybe for when the ship came out, when it was compared to the Bayern, absolutely, the artillery feels way more consistent, but not as rewarding because you lack overmatch. So you're really relying on the shells to go exactly where you want them in order to pick up those high damage salvos, and unless you're shooting cruisers, mainly cruisers, it's kind of hit or miss depending on if ships decide to angle to you or whatnot. I said the penetration's not terrible, the shell's flight speed's not terrible. These are all things that are factoring in whether or not the AP shell is going to do something when it hits the target, not just ricochet or shatter, which I did find to be that big of an issue, especially where you want to be playing around that 15-kilometer mark and inward. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be desired here when playing this ship, and I honestly will find myself playing other ships. And I said, the ship's not really offering anything out of the ordinary that I couldn't just get by playing the Mackinson or playing the Bayern, which are both free ships just by playing the game. It's for free, right? So that's why I can't give my full endorsement or full recommendation on the ship, just because I just feel like you could just play the game for free and get similar play styles, right? So at least just my opinion. What else is there to really talk about the ship? At the end of the day, it is a tier 6 battleship. This is nothing more than a little bit of a stuffer that Wargaming shoves in there. I mean, if you're like me and you enjoy playing, tier 5 and higher, it can be a fun ship here or there, especially to meme around if you want to build into the secondaries and like fuck around a little bit. But again, from a competitive side of things, I just think there's flat out better ships, and you're probably going to want bigger guns or things that are going to be able to be a little bit more accurate with their guns. And the Prinz Eitel Friedrich just really doesn't have either of them at the end of the day. If people tell you that this ship is just like insanely accurate, and that's why you'd want to pick her up. I just feel like they just haven't really, they don't really understand what accuracy is in the game, because the Prinz Eitel Friedrich isn't that. It's a little bit more consistent with where its shells are going to be landing because of the 2.0 Sigma, but again, with their vertical and horizontal dispersion matching that of the Bayern, I really just don't see it, winning any rewards here. So, but at the end of the day, I do want to conclude with my final thoughts about the ship. If you're a collector, if you are a German battleship main, and if you just love tier 6 battleships, I don't know, like, I think the ship isn't bad. I think there's definitely fun to be had in her. But if you're anything of someone who's looking to play the strongest ships, someone who's looking to be impactful time in and time out, I don't think this ship is necessarily for you, and I don't think it's particularly very good. I think it's just your standard run-of-the-mill battleship that really doesn't bring much to the table that you can't find already in the game somewhere else. Just my take on her. And that's coming from someone who plays a fair amount of battleships, not solely. Obviously, I'll always prefer my cruisers. But again, when I'm going down to tier 6, I'm trying to find, memorable battleships that really bring that layer of oomph to the game, like the Ismail, in my opinion. Certainly not the New Mexico, if you've watched my New Mexico review down the line series to the Montana, because I freaking despise that ship. But, even the West Virginia 41, the Warspite, the Repulse, just ships like that really bring something to the table that I can get behind, that's really fun, and I can be impactful time in and time out. And again, if you get double up tiered in this thing, forget about it. I just think you're going to be glorified into an HE spammer for the most part, and which you already saw when I highlighted the HE. The HE is really nothing to write home about. So again, if you're going to get the ship because you're a collector, yeah, or if you're going to get this ship to meme around for the secondaries, yeah, but if you're not going to do that, then this ship is definitely not for you. And I really wouldn't recommend, picking up this vessel, at least in my opinion. Of course, if you're someone that looks at the event pass for all the goodies and rewards you want to get, or all the prizes, yeah, like, maybe this ship isn't the main reason why you're picking up the event pass, but you might play the ship for a little bit from time in and time out. You might put a high-level commander, like your Schlieffen commander or your Bismarck commander, and bring them down on the ship and have fun. That's really about it. I don't really see myself, or you guys especially, going down to lower tiers and playing the ship time and time again, grinding out to, a high-level commander, which is like, what, 16, 17, 18 up. I really don't see it happening. But again, if I'm wrong, and you like the Prinz Eitel Friedrich for what it is and what this ship brings, please tell me why. Let me know why you like the ship. Let me know why I'm wrong, and maybe I missed something that this ship brings to the table that I just didn't find on my initial playthrough, or 10 games that I play. Obviously, I play ships around 10 times when making a video. I pick a game that I think highlights a lot of the strengths and maybe some of the weaknesses to the ship. But again, if I'm wrong about something with these ships, guys, please, by all means, call me out and let me know why. Don't just come and write in and be belligerent and say, oh, you're an idiot, this ship is ass. That's not really doing anyone any good, because I want to have a discussion and I want to debate about certain ships, what makes a ship good, what makes a ship bad, that sort of stuff. I'm only here as a source of information to have a discussion, because I think that not a lot of people have discussions. A lot of people have opinions, but they don't really put factual evidence behind their opinions. They kind of just, say flat out what they believe, and then they don't put any evidence to back it up. And I really don't think you have any stance behind that opinion if you're not going to inform me on why you believe, a ship to be shit, or why you believe a ship to be good, right? It's just something that I think we could all do a little bit better on, is stating why we believe something to be the way that it is. That's all. So, but yeah, guys, I mean, again, the ship, I didn't do bad in these ships. But again, like I said, I think the one term that I can't coin enough is there's much to be left to be desired, from when I played this ship, and it kind of makes you want to go play another ship. It's kind of the end of the day. Will I play this ship again? Yeah, time and time again. Maybe, and then I'll dust off, this ship, but it's not going to be my first choice. Definitely not going to be my first choice when I'm going down to tier 6 and playing battleships. So, Anyways, guys, we end up picking up the win. We clock in around 84,000 damage. Again, nothing out of the ordinary here, just a standard BB game, not cherry picked. Just wanted to showcase some footage to put and talk a little bit about the ship. That's all. So, anyways, guys, I will leave you with the post-battle screen. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure to comment down below, give me a like, potentially a subscribe, and I'll do my best to be cranking and rolling out videos when I can, as long as my schedule cooperates with what I'm trying to do. So, anyways, guys, you all have a good one, and good luck out in the battlefield, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good day, and peace out.